Hey everybody, welcome back to another Cinefix Now Roundtable. We got everybody in the same room all at once to talk about all the things that happened this week. So let's dive straight into it. The first thing that I desperately want to talk about is the Godzilla trailer. Issue number one with the Godzilla trailer, how awesome it is. Yeah. We can talk about that. And then issue number two, there's something interesting that happens in this trailer that I think is interesting that's happening in trailers and ad campaigns for like every movie. But we'll get to that after we talk about how badass this looks, right?
Yeah.
It does look badass.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah. So this is particularly the Japanese trailer, the new Japanese trailer, and I think what's really opening up is we're realizing now that they're doing sort of, well, I think everyone who's a fan of Godzilla is expecting and hoping, which is having more monsters than just Godzilla in the movie. So it almost seems like in this trailer, he's not going to be the main threat. He might almost become Hero Godzilla as he's become through the years.
Because there's the line from Ken Watanabe where Aaron Taylor Johnson's like, "Can you kill him?" Yeah. And he's like, "Something can." Yeah. And then we get to look at Godzilla. So it's like the other monster, which Rodan, maybe?
That's what it looks like.
I vote for Mothra.
It doesn't even look like a moth.
It's all like leathery and
Yeah. It's clearly not Mothra. I mean, the reason
It looks like Rodan.
it looks like an 80-year-old woman stretched over wings, not like super colorful.
That still sounds like Mothra to me.
I think the reason everyone thinks it's Mothra is the second most popular of those monsters after Godzilla. And Mothra, like, was in a bunch, but Rodan actually came after Godzilla originally. This creature looks like a pterodactyl. It even flies like Rodan. It doesn't even fly like Mothra. So it's clearly not Mothra. And, the thing is...
Shut up about Mothra, Mullen.
I mean, how dare you bring that up?
Feel embarrassed
Because I didn't have that thought when I saw that trailer at all. I didn't immediately go, "Oh, that must be Mothra."
They're calling these creatures Muto, and I'm not an expert, but I'm assuming what's going to happen is there's going to be all these like new mutation monsters. They're going to start becoming the creatures we know. Like maybe later we'll see like Ghidra, Mothra maybe later. So
Like Godzilla, the New Mutants.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they could have a show that's just about the people who hunt Godzilla and try to kill him, but we won't have any monsters in it at all. It'll just be people in suits and uniforms talking about fighting monsters, and they could have...
I feel like Mullen just pitched the absolute worst Pokemon spin-off ever. Gotta catch 'em all, but I never will.
Eventually. I can't find it. I doubt he was talking about Pokemon.
Mark and I were discussing that the other day, if they could ever do a live-action Pokemon movie. And I don't think they can, because it's like those poor animals are basically like the slaves of
dogfighting, basically.
Yeah, it's dogfighting and cockfighting.
That's what it is.
And only that cutesy little, Japanese anime world is it somehow okay. But if you actually put that out, it would be, terrifying.
Well, like, to bring those into any sort of real world, they would be, like, grotesque horribles.
Yeah.
It would be like H.P. Lovecraft. Like, Jigglypuff would be horrendous.
And just, stares at you and puts you to sleep.
This is really... Now we're getting somewhere. We're going to have an HR puffin stuff.
This is the second weekend in a row where we've talked about, you know what would be good for this? A horror movie. Make this trippy.
I gotta catch all, but I'm so scared of it.
I regularly have conversations with a 9-year-old that begins, "If Pokemon were real, would you train them? Would you bet?" I'm like, if Pokemon were real, I would hide under the bed and never come out. I mean, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the stats on Pokemon, but some of them are like 30 feet long. They could totally eat.
Onyx is huge.
They're not so much
I remember playing Pokemon
pocket
Snap
monsters.
as a kid. That
Me
thing
too.
was gigantic, man.
Oh God, I brought that up the other day. Pokemon Snap. I forgot that's what it was called. I was like, it's a game where it's SC4 and you're taking pictures of Pokemon. I can't remember what it's called. It was lame.
I checked out of this Pokemon conversation.
There are two people who have no overlap with the Pokemon.
I can't keep up with Pokemon at all. But Godzilla looks pretty badass. I think is the
Charizard
point. But again, though, the thing I found interesting about this trailer is that it sort of showed a different, it changed the story of what we all thought Godzilla was going to be, which I think X-Men did the same thing a couple trailers back. There's trailer, TV spot, and then all of a sudden there's a trailer that comes out that kind of shifts the movie and makes it seem like it's going to be about something else. And the fact that this is the Asian market trailer, and then sort of spinning it around to make Godzilla sort of the hero in this particular trailer, I think, is interesting, and you know, maybe that's a subtle difference. I mean, it's not a subtle difference, obviously, but maybe that's a difference between, you know, an international version versus a domestic version, because the original intent of Godzilla was like he was sort of a metaphor for the U.S. and us like bumbling around with atomic
And an
like,
anti-nuclear.
Yeah, and then to have sort of the Asian version of the trailer have Godzilla suddenly seem like he's gonna save the day is, I don't know, it's interesting.
Well, is there a bigger conversation just in the marketing in terms of looking at how the United States reacted to Pacific Rim versus the rest of the world? Where it's like, oh, look, there's going to be a bunch of monsters in this for the rest of the world, but in the trailers that we're essentially getting here, it's like, no, it's very much about Bryan Cranston, because we know you love him.
We know you love Cranston.
And there will be good guys and bad guys and a guy calling the government out on it.
Let them fight.
Well, I think, you know, for an American audience, a lot of people haven't even really seen a Godzilla movie, frankly. They know of Godzilla. Maybe they saw the original one.
They heard rumors of Godzilla.
All they know about it is Matthew Broderick and Madison Square Garden.
So they think of Godzilla as just destroying a city and that's it. But for these audiences in Japan that grew up with hero Godzilla fighting all these monsters,
It's a whole
saving Tokyo.
It's a philosophical debate about this idea of what does Godzilla represent, and they're like, well, he's not good, he's not bad, he's a force of nature.
Doesn't Godzilla represent atomic energy? Like, there's a lot of downsides to it, but there's a lot of positive sides to it as well.
Yeah, it's the conflict centered around that is sort of the original intent of Godzilla.
Yeah,
which is why it was like a legit movie to start with, and then it turned into like this weird cartoon.
That was like, oh, kids love Godzilla. Well, I guess we'll change the movie.
Guess we'll have the
originally.
Harlem Globetrotters show up in this one.
Yeah, so no Mothra. No Mothra, you idiot.
Fool.
The subtext is, what a dummy.
Godzilla's badass. Mike's an idiot. I think we've covered enough ground on Godzilla. We can probably move on. The biggest news this week was the Star Wars casting. Happened, what was that, Tuesday? I guess they posted the picture of the table read, and they got everybody in the room, and
Including R2-D2.
including R2-D2 in his box. They let him out of his box.
Yeah, Kenny Baker's still in it from the original.
What about Billy D. Williams? I mean, they're
There's
kind of
no-
getting the
And
short end of the stick. Billy D. I mean,
I think, well, that is kind of the interesting conversation about the Star Wars casting is who's sort of noticeably absent from it, including Lando. Everybody seemed to, that was a lot of people's first response is like, oh, come on, we need Lando. And then the other one was like, oh, great guy. And you even pointed out earlier this week in Cinefix Now, I was like, you just sticking to the original plan. A lot of dudes, one chick. And we only got one new female cast member. But look, I mean, you know, just having, you know, one token girl around is a big problem in this town, including here at Cinefix. Sorry.
It's just
Christina?
it's funny because, like, all right, in the scope of Star Wars, the movies always have one girl, but then the expanded universe, the books, the video games, even the new TV series Star Wars Rebels that is tied in to the actual new canon universe, the majority of the cast is women, but nobody cares about that. So
Yeah.
we'll have all the good storytelling happen in the world that
Right.
nobody cares about,
Exactly.
like what happened with Clone Wars.
One woman, two women, three women in the cast. I think the thing that really ticked off a lot of people on the internet was just the ratio. You know, it definitely diminishes your chance to pass the Bechdel test, having two women actually talk to each other. It would be nice to have a woman in a role that you can cast either way, gender-wise, like a fighter pilot.
You know, no one wants to accept it because we're all older now, but the first Star Wars especially, it's made for like 8-year-old boys. Yeah. It's a kid's movie that happened to be really good and a really cool sci-fi fantasy movie, but it's made for kids who are like, ugh, girls have cooties. It's not made for like adults. It's not made for people that want like a reasonable ratio. It's just like dudes with lightsabers running around and laser blasters and bing bing and robots.
It's just weird because it gets lumped in the same conversation. Because meanwhile, DC and Warner Brothers, they don't have a clue how to make a Wonder Woman movie. Freaking Mole Man is in a movie now, and they're still trying to figure out how to get Wonder Woman on screen.
Yeah, there's so many franchises they have taken on that are much more challenging in terms of buying in than Wonder Woman. I'd say Green Lantern on its surface is a much more ridiculous premise. Just you put on a ring and you're transported to outer space with aliens, and yet they greenlit that movie without And nobody ever said, gee, I don't know, this concept seems like it might be tough to get audiences.
They did it, though, because it launched right after the biggest DC event, which was Blackest Night, that all tied in with the Green Lantern Corps. It was like the biggest event in comic books at that time. And so they figured they could just kind of launch into it and, and start this big DC thing, because Marvel was starting and it just backfired miserably.
You take that setup from Green Lantern, and then you juxtapose that with, like, well, she's a woman. I mean, she's a badass. And they're like, I don't get it.
But I mean, if you look at that picture, like, one of those men is going to be in a tiny metal container. The other is going to be in a large furry container. Andy Serkis is going to be covered in a green screen suit the whole time and probably playing an inanimate object, like the Rock of Wisdom. At some point, it's like, yeah, there's no women in that picture, and there definitely should be more women in this, so hopefully they're not done casting, but I think it's too early to jump on and start waving
I just hope it's a good movie. I basically just really, really hope
it won't be. And you know why? Because we all hope too much.
There are an awful lot of cooks in that broth.
It'll be JJ good, in that, like, we'll all go to the theater, we'll all see it, we'll all have a good time, and then 20 minutes later we'll be like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Well, that's enough of that. Right?
That went all over the place.
That went all over the place.
We did touch on comic books a little bit.
We did touch on comic books a little bit, which brings us back to Marvel and their big announcement this week.
Their big announcement this week was that all of the shows and all of the movies are going to be in the same universe. The 4 Netflix live action shows, continuing with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and any spin-offs that may come from that, and all of the movies, which just sounds like a really big spreadsheet in some creative executive's computer, honestly.
I mean, it sounds like comic books.
It does.
Like,
it does sound exactly
what Marvels are doing for years.
It's narratively, it demands a lot, and it's going to be a huge trick. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was, and then it had this bit, but they were so beholden to what they were planning for Cap 2. And now it's paying off, so it's, and again, like, we sing the praises of Netflix around here quite a bit, but that's why I think these are really, really well suited for Netflix.
Sure, it's a 13-hour movie. It's also Daredevil, who the Avengers and the Guardians of the Galaxy more or less never interact with, or do only when there's a really big alien.
They keep saying that, but like they keep saying Guardians of the Galaxy is over there. But I mean, like they're going to be, it's going to be tied in. It's going to like
the cutscene at the end of Thor 2 was tying Guardians into Avengers 3. So it's like they're in. But all of the Netflix things are going to take place in Hell's Kitchen, right?
Well, New York in general. Well, I think the thing is, I think the Netflix
It's going to take place in a 3-block.
Yeah, exactly. I think the Netflix shows, they're all going to tie in together because they're going to make the Defenders afterwards. I think they'll mention things that happen in the movies and stuff, but I think the thing is all those are going to go together. They're going to do their mini Avengers, and then there's always a possibility of these other characters either going into an Avenger movie, going into another movie, going into one of the Shields. I don't think it's like everything's gonna be like directly tied in every little aspect, but I think it's the thing is we're leaving the door open to possibly add these characters to the other movies. And it's like, in Daredevil, that alone, you could have a whole conversation of how really difficult that character is to portray cool outside of a comic book, because he's very difficult to portray as an awesome character in live action. You have Luke Cage. A lot of people don't know who Luke Cage is. Jessica Jones. Even comic book fans, a lot of them have no idea who she is. Right. And Iron Fist is, is like one of those weird 70s, trippy characters. So I think the only way they can really launch those characters is by doing these Netflix series.
So at what point do these movies become so bogged down in their mythology that regular people can't digest them anymore?
Well, as long as you throw in a nice, a lot of sequences about parliamentary procedure.
And trade routes.
I mean, the trade routes are important. Once you get into that, that's what really grabs people. Then that's how you hang on to your audience over a long time.
See, I don't think the movies are the things in danger of getting bogged down so much as the TV shows are in danger of not being able to deal with the Hulk when they want to be able to deal with the Hulk because they can't book.
But I see, in my head, I see a lot more people going to see like an Avengers movie than people tuning in to watch a Daredevil TV show.
They're already expecting quite a bit from their audience because, like, the way that S.H.I.E.L.D. aired in conjunction with Cap 2 was like you needed to watch this week's episode of S.H.I.E.L.D., you needed to go this weekend to go see Captain America 2, and then you needed to watch next week's episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and it's all one thing.
Let's be honest, we
you
all
could have
did
just
that,
watched
though.
Cap 2 and never have seen Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and you'd been none the wiser. And
Yeah.
it was still out. I love the Marvel movies. I think they're like basically what I wanted out of my childhood is these movies. But to be fair, they're not complicated.
No, but
not
you're assuming that they're going to go
storylines.
from a top-down, trickle-down effect, which means that nothing that happens at this level is going to trickle back up.
But it does.
You'll have the.
But that's what I'm talking about. What happens at that point when all of this stuff trickles back up to the main movies and the regular movie-going audience has no idea who this guy is on screen, like holding this.
They
this one
figured
thing.
that out in the comic books. You can jump in to any. You can jump into any comic book at any point in time and be caught up.
See, but that's because
No, that is absolutely 100% false.
That's because
and that's 100%
That's how they're designed to be read.
Look at Green Lantern, and if you try to jump into like the Darkest Night kind of stuff, that is super dense. There's so many characters in there. You have no idea.
Then you've got these
who half
little
of them are.
annotations on every page explaining to you.
Here's what's going to happen with the movies, with bringing people up.
He just
from
told
the
us there's
shows.
going to be a lot of annotations, and we'll be doing a lot of reading.
flipping to the back, all over this for the footnotes.
You've got the glories of Wikipedia now. You're just like, I don't know who that is.
We'll
I
trickle
know
down
who
to a
that
second
is.
screen experience. We'll take our iPads to the theater, and we'll be like, oh, who's that?
Begin your second
he's
screen
a planet.
experience.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. But
It'll
like,
be a fanboy bonus. It'll be like in Thor, the first Thor movie, where this guy goes to take out Thor, and he's like, Agent Barton, stand down. And people who haven't read the comic books are like, oh, it's some guy named Agent Barton. And the people who have read the comics are like, it's Hawkeye. They put Hawkeye in this movie and said nothing further about it. That will be how they handle it.
It's going to be. I guess the main point is they better handle it. You know, because no, but that's the thing. They're introducing so many new threads and so many new things, and they're expanding their universe on screen in such a significant way that there's a lot of things to tie together. And if it doesn't work together, it's not going to work together, and it's going to ruin the experience of everything.
Making it all into one big universe that's everywhere, that's unavoidable, for people who just don't give a about this stuff, makes them want to shoot themselves in the head.
Then let them shoot themselves in the head.
it worked in Cap 2. There was like the guy they find on the boat.
Sitwell.
He is a minor character in S.H.I.E.L.D. and I had not gotten caught up on S.H.I.E.L.D. when I went to see Cap 2, and I wasn't lost. But then I watched it, and I was like, oh, that would have been more of an impact.
I'm glad you brought that up, though. No, because I had seen him on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I'd seen him on the show, and he was a tiny bit in the Avengers, and he's been in a couple other little things. I thought the fact that he was a significant part of Captain America 2 was the lamest part of Captain America 2.
But not having that setup, I thought he was a fantastic character for Cap 2. Like I thought it really propelled.
Is if you're taking in the entire universe and there's all these little threads everywhere else, and they're up in Avengers and up in Cap 2, and he's down on the show and everything, like it was lame to me, specifically because of that.
The cameraman wants to say something.
Okay, sorry, I'm going crazy. Okay, go ahead. The Avengers, the whole universe, and all this stuff, what they're doing, regardless of, like, I've never read the comic books, and I still enjoy watching Avengers. I've had people that sit and watch the Avengers that never watch the other movies, that don't know what's going on, but they watch it because it's a product that's made for the whole world. It's not just made for comic book people.
Right.
So it's going to be something that's suitable for everybody to sit and watch. Even if you don't know how to speak English, you don't know who any of these characters are.
You have to speak English and you can enjoy it.
But that's what I mean. It's made for the whole world.
And it's not. And I'm not asking Marvel to make things just for fan. Like I don't really consider myself a fanboy. Like I love what Marvel is doing with the cinematic universe and expanding the universe. I think it's really cool and interesting. It's just they're expanding it by quite a bit, and there's just a lot of threads that are going to either get lost or they're going to it sort of made it lame to me. Again, and that's kind of an issue.
It's a risk. I mean, should we contrast it with how DC's handling their movies
It's not even
versus
fair to kick a retarded kid while he's down.
Until a couple months ago, I'd say in the TV world, DC was doing a lot better. Arrow was better than Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and the potential Flash spin-off looked a lot more exciting than anything they could possibly spin off of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And they have made no such announcement that, Arrow is going to be that Arrow in the Justice League. It's going to be the Earth One. You know, like it's more analogous to the Earth One versus Ultimate versus. Good Lord, how many universes?
All
you
the
don't
universes.
have to. The unified universe is like comic books, but it's also there's an equally comic booky way to sidestep the universe.
Absolutely. The multiverse.
And that's
Right.
As of right now.
Ignoring it.
So are they going to make Infinite Crisis a movie?
That would be rad.
Okay. Yeah, maybe stop right there.
Animate that one.
The funny thing is, DC has more possibilities to do a great job because they own every character in their stable. They're not like Marvel that's split off. But the problem is, all they really care about is Batman and Superman. Look at the animated movies. Almost every animated movie is starring either Batman or Superman.
Well, and part of that, I think, is no one really gave too much of a about Iron Man until Robert Downey Jr. made us. So, like, part of it is, like, get a good performance, get a good film out of one of these characters, and we'll start caring. Like, had Green Lantern been really good, we'd all, all those 9-year-olds would be wearing Green Lantern t-shirts right now.
But it's so funny to me that it's like, people are like, I don't know if they'll do a Flash movie. They're making a damn Ant-Man movie. Yeah. But the Flash is a crazy idea.
I feel like Marvel's doing a lot of stuff just as kind of a you. Yeah. Like, oh, no, we'll put a talking raccoon in our next one. Don't worry about it. Like, good luck with Wonder Woman.
Next up, Squirrel Girl. And
all right, guys, well, let us know what you think about all this down in the comments below, and make sure to click like and subscribe, and come back next time for more movie news on Cinefix Now, and more jawing at each other about comic books. And then we all mumble and we leave. Yay. Traditionally, this is the part where we mumble and we leave. Taking our jobs! You're taking a job!